Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Menahot Daf Ain Amud Aleph Daf Yomi. We were just going to start on Samechet Mubet on the bottom, 69b, the bottom. Okay, it says in the Gemara, Bae Rava. Rava asked the question. Remember, Bae means, just like we learned Ba'inan in the Kiryam Masechta, Ba'inan is that we need or we're going to ask, right? Or we want. So when it says Bae Rava, Rava asked the question. Okay, because he wanted to know what the answer is. So Bae Rava, Rava comes and he asks. Okay? Linyan maaser mai. What is the deen after maaser? Do we go after the tosefet, the extra that was added in, or not? So says the Gemara, Hechidami, what's the case? Kegon, for example, the fine mudalef on the top, the amdinu vasrinu. They already went and they made an omed. Omed is like an evaluation. Vasrinu, and then they took off the masrot. Veshatlinu, and then they went and they planted it again. Veosifola, and then it grew more. Intim Salomar, if you're going to tell me lo azina batari ikar, that we don't go after the ikar, right? That means basically that we're not going to go by the tosefet lekula after the ikar, the tosefet by that you have to also do the maasrot on the extra ikar mai. What about the halacha on the ikar? So Amalabaya says, he says, what's the difference in all the ears, the kernels of the ears, from all the wheat and barley in the world? Right? That even if you're going to come and you're going to plant them afterwards, right? It's still going to be chayav maaser. Meaning, even though you took off maaser, if you plant it again and now it grows again you have to take off maaser. You always do that. So Amalei comes and he says, davar shezirao kale lo mibaile. If it's going to be that when you came and you planted it and it basically dissolved, that's not the question, right? For sure, you're going to be chayav. The question is, davar she'en zaru kaleh, when it doesn't actually dissolve. What's the halacha? Because since the ikar is still there, and I already took off the maaser on the ikar, so therefore ki'ilu, I don't have to take it off again. It's like, for example, you invested lavdila lefavdalot, right, to separate 100 times, but just understand, you came and you took money, you invested in the stock market, right? You made $100,000, right? Be'ezrat Hashem. You take it out, right? So now you have to pay taxes on $100,000, correct? What happens if I took the same 100,000 and I put it back again, and then I made another $100,000? So I'm going to say, listen, but I already paid taxes. He says, no, but now you made a tosefet, you made an extra $200,000, right? You made it in total 200 now, right? It was 100 and then another 100. But the fact that you made that, again, you're going to have to pay taxes on that. So the exact same thing. What we're saying is for sure that you're going to have to pay the maaser again. But the question is, what happens if the original 100 is still there? I'm gonna have to pay again on the 100. I only have to pay on the extra 100 that I made, because that original 100 I already paid the taxes on the 100. So what do I have to pay again? You understand? That's the question. So Tif Shulemeha, we wanted to bring a proof to it, where it says Amar Yitzchak Amar Yochanan, says of Yitzchak the name of Yochanan, Litra Batzal Shetikno. When you have 1 liter, litra, okay, again, I translate it as a liter. It's not really a liter, but it's like a midava mishkal, that of batzal, of onions, that you went and you separated maaser, right? So therefore, and afterwards, now what happens? You have to do trumot maaserot again on everything that grew afterwards. So says the Gemara, hatamainu zliato. That's the regular way of doing it. Hacha here, lavainu zliato, meaning it's normal that you take the batzal, you put it back, and it grows again. He says here, to do with the shtilatam and the way that it's going to be in such a fashion, that's not the normal way, right? It's not the derech to come and to plant the seeds again, right? And then it goes away, right? And then it's going to become new. So he says, so therefore you can't compare 2 cases. What's halacha to do with atzit shenu nakuv? And atzit shenu nakuv means is that what happens if I come, I took off the maaser, and then I come and I put it to grow in an atzitz shenu nakuv, in a I don't know how you call it. I think it's like a flower pot, but I don't know how you call it. Maybe a vase, something like that, or whatever. Basically, it's like, but it doesn't have a hole, meaning it's not taking its nourishment from the ground, right? Because basically you put, that they have like these dirt, like pots for the plants, and some of them they have holes on the bottom, and some of them don't. Okay, so it does not have nakuv. It does not have a nekev. A nekev is a hole. So ilo nakuv, halo nakuv. He says if it's going to be that there's no hole, so there's no hole. So therefore, for sure, obviously, what are you going to tell me that you're going to take it on masrot and everything? What's the question? Dilma chazan kavod kamarta. Maybe you came and you did make a hole afterwards. Okay, so says the Gemara, hacha over here, chadaz riyahi. It's one planting. So therefore, it's going to connect the shorashim, and it's going to go up. Hatam over there, right? He says it's considered 2 different plantings. So by Rabbi Yavu comes and he asks the following question: right? He says like this. He says, "Shibolet shemarcha beki." When you have a shibolet, its ears, the kernels, they come and they put it into a pile. Ushtala, and then you came and it started planting. It started rooting in. V'kara Shem mechubar. And then it was called mechubar. Ma what's halacha? Kevan demircha. Once you put it in a pile, tavlale, you made it tevel, which is untithed produce. Kikra le Hashem, and then once you made it the name kachale became holy. Or dilmar maybe. Kevin the Shatla, the fact that afterwards you put it back in the ground, pakale it's not tevel anymore because you put it back in the ground, so therefore it planted again. So Amalele Banan la Abaye says Banan to Abaye, can if so, Matzinu Truma mechubar lekaka, does there exist a concept of Truma which is connected to the ground? Utnana, we learned on Mishnah, lo Matzinu Truma, we learned on Mishnah, it doesn't exist. Meaning it cannot be existing Truma in the ground. So Amarle, he says, Kitanya, when do we learn this concept? Linyani chiyuve, to be chayav mita bidei shamayim, if you ate it purposely. Meaning if you come and you eat truma purposely, you're chayav mita bidei shamayim, and you're also chayav chomesh, you have to pay back a fifth. Right, not only the principal, but you have to pay back 20% also. The talish v'achil, if you come and you disconnected it and you ate it, talushu. V'igachin v'achil, if right now you bent down and you ate it, batla datotze kol dam, it's not normal. Meaning it's not normal to eat it from the ground. If you pluck it out and you're eating it normally, that's one thing. But if you bend down and you're eating it from the ground, that's not normal. So what's the difference between this and you're writing it down on a pinkas, on like a notebook? To do with the beitzim of tahor, of a kosher bird. Part of it is outside of the of, and part of it is inside. The one which is on the inside is going to be the one that is going to be on the outside. So you've got a chicken, right? It's coming out the egg. And when it's coming out the egg, what's happening is that it's going to come out and part of it only comes out, right? So it's like half. So he says, if it's going to be that the ones on the outside, all right, or the ones on the inside is going to be mitameh betabliya, but the ones on the outside of the bird, they're not going to be mitameh. So says the Gemara, talush avde inshe de'ach lehachi. Some people, they eat it that way, but mechubar, if it's connected to the ground, nobody's going to eat something which is connected to the ground. It's not normal, okay, to eat something which is connected to the ground. So Amar of Tamyumi bar Kisda Amar Shmuel. Says of Tamyumi bar Kisda Amar Shmuel. Hazorea kil'aim. Right? If somebody's going to be zorea kil'aim. Okay? So he says, Be'atzit sheno nakuv, it's asur midrabbanan. That means he planted kilaim. Remember, kilaim is prohibited mixtures, but he planted it in an atzit sheno nakuv, it's only asur midrabbanan. Amar Abaye says, Bishlama, I understand it's going to be gori, yashmin lokem, that you're going to get makum mardum midrabbanan, which means you're going to get lashes midrabbanan. That's fine. But asur, well, my kamashman obviously, to midrabbanan, avyazriya, that midrabbanan, and is considered a zriya. Tarania, we already learned it once. In a Mishnah, taram misheno nakuv ala nakuv, if you did truma, that you took it on something which is not nakuv, on something which was a nakuv, it's a truma v'yachzor vitrom. It's truma midrabanan, and you have to take off truma again. So one more time, you have an atzitz she'eno nakuv. You took off trumot u'masrot. You have to take off trumot u'masrot again on the other thing which was on nakuv. Why? Because again, what we said, it's only midrabanan, but since you already took it off, it's going to be truma. But you have to take off truma one more time. Okay, Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Amud Aleph. Yeah. החיטין והשעורים והכוסמים והשיבולת שועל והשיפון, הרי אלו חייבים בחלה, right? The chitin, the wheat, barley, spelt, rye, right? And all these things, these are the 5 grains, by the way, on Pesach also. Okay, so you've got wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats. הרי אלו חייבים בחלה. It's going to be chayav in chala. מצטרפים זה עם זה, they're also going to combine together to be chayav in chala. So you could have half wheat, half barley, and it's going to be chayav chala. והסורים בחדש, and all these things are going to be אסורים חדש, לפני העומר, before the Omer, and לפני Pesach, and also to reap it before Pesach. If they already took root before the Omer, HaOmer matiran. So the Omer is going to be matirotam. And if not, asurin al sheyavo HaOmer abba. It's going to be prohibited until the next Omer. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a Braita, kusmin, spelt, is a type of wheat. Min chitin. Shibolet shuel v'shifon, which is going to be rye and oats, is a type of seorin. Okay, by the way that I remember it is the sin. Seorin is barley, shibolet shual, and shifon. All the sins and shins. The other ones is like chaf and chet. It's like chacha, right? Kusmin and chitin. So the wheat and spelt are the same, right? And the rye and the oats are going to be the same. They come from the barley. Okay? Kusmin, right? When we're talking about kusmin, right? Ayin amubet, the 70b, is gulba. Shifon is dishra, shibolet shual is shibolet ta'ala. Okay? So says the Gemara, honey in only these 5 are the 5 grains. Orez v'dochan lo, but not rice or millet, I think they call it. Yeah, millet. Okay, they're not chayavim in challah. So if you make rice cakes, rice bread, whatever thing of rice, it's nothing. Menana mila, how do we know these words? Amar Shakish, Aina Mubet, 70b, yeah? Says Shakish, we have a gzira shava, at lechem lechem, mimatzah. Ktiva it's written, vaya ba'cholchem milechem haaretz, when you're going to eat the lechem haaretz. Ktiva tam, and it's written over there, lechem oni. V'hatam gufei minana, how do you know over there also? So Amar Shakish, cherentam nishmel, cherentam Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, Amar Kar, the pasuk says, lo tuchal alav chametz. Right? What does that mean? Lo tuchal alav chametz. Shivat yemim chametz lechamoni. Tvarim abayim lidei chimutz. It's something which is coming through chimutz. Adam yotzei dvarim mechoveto. Yatzu elu. This comes to exclude she'em bayim lidei chimutz lidei sirchon. It doesn't become chametz. It becomes rotten. So it means these things, they don't become chametz. All these 5 grains, it becomes chametz. This doesn't become chametz. It just becomes rotten. Okay. Next, mitzarfim zeimzeh. The 2 dots. So we said that the wheat, barley, all these things, they all combine. So for example, let's say I have half wheat and half barley, half wheat, half spelt, half the, chetzi, it's mitzaref to the shiur of challah. Tana, we learned in the Braita, hatevua v'kamachim mitzekol mitzarfim zeh. Tevua, grains, or kemach, or wheat, or flour, or batzek, or the doughs, they're all mitzaref to each other. My heichot for what halacha? Amar Rav Kahana linyan chadash. Do with chadash that if you put all of them together, you're going to be over on chadash. Okay, that means if you like for a kazait of the chadash that you get lashes for. Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef says, "Yinan chametz b'Pesach," also for chametz and Pesach, because if you have a kazait of everything together, it's going to be chayav karet. I only had half a kazait of wheat and half a kazait of barley, but it's still chametz. Rav Papa Savar linyan maaser sheni, to do with eating maaser sheni. Ti achileb is if you ate it outside of the walls of Jerusalem, laka, you're going to get lashes. The last explanation, Rava Savar, Nyan Tumat Ochlin, to become Tameh Ochlin. Kamashmanan comes to teach you the 12 Kumachim Dumya Devitzkot, that wheat and the flour is compared to the doughs. Just like over there, Ochla Be'ena, it's like the food in itself. So 2 years considered the food in itself. So ask the Gemara, it says the Gemara, V'atanya Hechita Ben Klipa Ben Shen Klufa, doesn't matter whether it was already peeled or not peeled. Meaning we're talking about that the barley was peeled or not. Mitzarefet, it's going to be mitzarefet. Seorah, Klifa mitzarefet, only if it's going to be peeled barley, right? That's what like split barley is called, that it's peeled already. So he says, V'she'ena Klufa ena mitzarefet. Says the Gemara, any is it so? V'atana D'Reb Yishmael, al kol zera zerua shel yizarea, kederesh ben adam motzim nizriya. Just like people come and they take it out. Chita is beklipata, seorah beklipata, dashim beklipata. When you take it from the field, it's always going to be with a klipa. So answers the Gemara, lakasha, it's not a question. Ha belachut, ha b'yishod. It all depends whether it's moist or whether it's dry. Okay, but he said if it's going to be that it's moist, so therefore if it's not klufa, if it's not peeled, it's not mitzaref. But if it's dry, it is going to be mitzaref, because basically it doesn't have a din of shomer, right? That it's going to be, because basically once it's dry, they break very easily. So therefore that's why it's not going to watch over, the klipa is not going to wash over the fruit. Because as long as it's moist, it still protects the fruit. If it's dry, the peel does not protect the fruit anymore. Okay, until here we're clear? Vasurin chadash v'lifnei omer. You're going to be chayav chadash before the omer. Menana mila, how do we know these words? Amar Shakish says, "Shakish atel lechem lechem b'matzah." It's a gzira shava, right, from matzah. V'liktzol lifnei Pesach. You have to reap it before the Pesach. Menana mila, how do we know these words? Amar Rabbi Yochanan atel reshit from challah. My kodem l'omer. What does it mean kodem l'omer? Rabbi Yonah says kodem ksirat omer, before the reaping of the omer. Rabbi Yosef bar Zav da omer kodem avaat omer, before the bringing of the omer. Okay, tonight we learned in a Mishnah. Asurim bechadash lifnei haomer v'liktzol lifnei Pesach. Bishlam, I understand kodem avat omer before you bring the omer. I lo karav lu v'tani lu. That's why we didn't learn it. But according to the Manamer, before ksirat haomer l'arviv v'litnin. Why don't you just put everything together? V'asurim bechadash v'liktzol lifnei Pesach, and it's going to be asur from eating it as chadash and to reaping it before Pesach. Elai itmar, but rather this is what it's on the seifa. Itmar. Imishishu kodem laomer. If it already rooted before the omer is matirotam. My kodem laomer. Kodem avaat omer, kodem ksirat omer, meaning like this. It has to take root. If it took root before Pesach, it's going to be mutar, because now the korban omer is going to permit it. The korban omer is a permitter. But what has to be rooted by when? Is it by the reaping, which is going to be done during the nighttime, or is it going to be the actual bringing of the korban? So the first one is the bringing of the korban. The second one was the ksirat omer. So there's going to be a difference, obviously, between the two of them. And Amar Rabbi Lazar says Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yoshia the Darei, right, that he was in his generation. Lo tetev al karach, don't sit on your legs until you're going to explain this Mishnah. How do we know that the omer is matid be'ashasha? And then the Gemara is going to say, Manhalan, from where do you know? It's written Aviv. right? So it's mashma on Raviv, and obviously we're going to continue from there, B'ezrat Hashem.